Hey friends, welcome back. What if Naruto was get a reward from DxD World Movie? Have you ever had a day where things are really looking up only for things to go tits up in an instant? The sun is out, low cloud cover, birds singing, only for a volcano to go off right underneath you. That is what Naruto was feeling right now. Team 7 had been doing well against Kaguya. After Obito's sacrifice to save Naruto and Kakashi, they had rallied, pushing the rabbit goddess back steadily. For a brief shining moment, they had actually thought they had it in the bag. Then, a cheap shot from Kaguya's will had disabled Sasuke, a shot to the ribs from the left that left the Avenger with a punctured lung and heavy, shallow breaths. He would defiantly be down for more than a few minutes, something Naruto knew they couldn't afford. To make matters worse, it seemed Kaguya wanted to cash in on the lull in combat, by which she immediately set out to unleashing her full power on the world around them. It was like hell, mountains crumbled, large bodies of water began to boil, cracks ripped through the ground like a vengeful god had struck the earth with a hammer, tears in the very fabric of reality began to pop up everywhere, some leading to the dead void of space itself, sucking all manner of earth and plant life into itself. Naruto was thinking harder and faster than ever before in his life. There was always a way out, always a way to win. He just needed to find it. They needed something, anything. They had to balance the scale now. As if waiting for the word, Naruto saw it, inconspicuous, innocent even. Behind Kaguya another tear formed. It wasn't the same though, something was different. It was bright, colorful, like a rainbow backdrop on the former princesses. He knew what he had to do as soon as he felt the raw unbridled power leaking from the tear. He saw the results of the action forming in his mind. If nothing else, he could do this. Hey Kurama. You thinking what I am? He shouted into his mind. I know exactly what you're thinking, and it does seem like something you would do, you crazy brat. No knowing what happened to us though. Naruto grew solemn, thinking over his decision, knowing how it all might end. Are you with me on this? Can you link with the others inside Kaguya? I want you to ask them if they are okay with me doing this, Naruto asked the massive chakra. It wasn't just his life he was gambling with after all. Give me a second. The moments ticked by, second after agonizing second passed in almost slow motion. There with you Naruto, or in Son's words, we ain't got much of a damn choice. Kurama rumbled, they trusted him to make the right choice. Thanks Ku, I'll do everything I can to make sure you guys make it out, that's a promise of a lifetime. A proud grin came over Naruto's face before he turned to his oldest and dearest friends. Kakashi. I need you to do something for me. Kakashi swung his head to look at the glowing blonde, curious on what crazy scheme he had cooked up this time. Lay it on me Naruto. I'm all out of ideas. He called back. The smile that came over Naruto's face set Kakashi on edge. Something about it just didn't seem right. I need you to let everyone when you guys get back. I need you to watch over Sasuke and protect Konoha. Teach the future generations like you taught me, alright. Kakashi looked confused before understanding grew in his eyes. What are? Sakura. I need a favor from you too. The pin cat looked up from where she was healing Sasuke. What is it Naruto? I'm a little busy. She was a bit annoyed. Didn't Naruto get that healing took concentration? I know. Look, take care of Sasuke, okay? And apologize to Hinata for me. I have to break my promise to her. She's gonna need you to support her too. What the hell are you on about? Sakura shouted back, miffed that he would ask such a thing during at this point in the battle. It's not like he was going anywhere. Just do as I ask, okay? I love you guys. Kakashi wanted to stop him, he wanted to so much, but his body just wouldn't move, the shock of what his student was about to do, nailing him in place. Naruto wait. The blonde grinned, melancholy clear on his visage. In a burst of light he was upon Kaguya, his body bowling her and himself into the portal as the white-haired chakra monster reacted by stabbing an all-killing ash bone into Naruto's right side out of reflex. They both cried out, one in pain, the other in shock, as the portal closed behind them. It was like a switch was flipped, the world they were stuck on righted itself almost instantly, the waters calmed, the ground stopped shaking, and the tears in the world sealed. What just happened, Kakashi? Sakura spoke softly, shock running through her. Where did Naruto go? Desperation colored her words as her hands gripped into fists tightly. She knew what she saw, she just couldn't, it didn't make any sense. Kakashi just stared at the stop Naruto had disappeared into, the consequences of his inaction starting to weigh on him slowly. Kakashi. Where is Naruto? Sakura's voice slammed into him like a hammer. He looked down, his eyes shadowing his face. Has gone, the answer was like a whisper, a ghost floating on the wind, that didn't stop it from cutting into Sakura like a knife, the hurt was instantly on her face. You're lying. She shouted in a panic Naruto. Get out here. I'm gonna pound you so hard if you don't get out here right now. Silence met her declaration, final, absolute, Naruto. Get out here. You promised me we'd bring Sasuke home together. God damn it Naruto. Her vision blurred slowly, her eyes searched the empty field, desperate for that glaring orange outfit. She turned again and again, frantic, before two arms wrapped around her, halting her movement. Sakura, he is gone, he tackled Kagaya into one of the tears, you saw her stab him, he is gone, Kakashi spoke softly, but each word rocketed into her, tears quickly spilled from her eyes, she wanted it to stop, he had to be lying, Naruto didn't know how to lose. He was unstoppable, damn it. He wasn't gone. Sakura turned to scream that in Kakashi's face only to stop short, something was wrong, Sakura knew the person before her was supposed to be her teacher, a strong man, a man that never broke under pressure, seeing the tears staining his face mask didn't make sense. I'm sorry, has gone, her throat tightened harshly, no. She tried to shake the hands off of her arms, anger and hurt and despair in her voice, no. You're wrong. She screamed in defiance, even as she sank to her knees, Kakashi quickly wrapped Sakura in a hug, they could worry about leaving this world later, right now it was just the three of them, the remnants of Team 7, now, for this one moment, they could mourn, Kakashi sighed bitterly, hot tears marring his face, as Sakura wailed in his arms, how would he explain this to everyone? Fuck, that hurts. Naruto grit his teeth as he dragged Kagaya into a long fall. He could already feel the all-killing ash bone going to work, his yin-yang release worked to counteract the damage, but he knew it won't last forever, hell, if it weren't for all the coexisting power-ups, had probably be dead already. Sage mode, plus the tailed beast chakra, on top of the chakra given to him from the old sage, left for one resilient motherfucker. Kagaya was distracted, looking around shocked at the area around them, Naruto could hear a battle in the distance, but that wasn't important right now, he had to act. Raw. With a mighty cry, he latched his left hand on Kagaya's forehead, directly over her third eye, the seal on his hand glowing brightly, now Kurama. Pull with me. He screamed into his mind. You see, chakra transference worked both ways, it was give and take, if one had the proper skill and timing, you could literally steal another's power. Naruto was a master of chakra transference, and right now, he was stealing back his friends. Aggh. Kagaya screamed in pain and shock, her power. No. Forming another all-killing ash bone, she slid it into Naruto's ribs neatly, she had come too far. Was too close. Give. Me. Back. My. Friends. Naruto shouted, ignoring the ache in his chest, as he ripped his hand away from Kagaya's forehead, pulling the chakra of the nine-tailed beasts from her body in one harsh withdrawal. It entered his system as they both continued to fall. Damn you, Kagaya's eyes dripped, her tone full of anger and hate, light leaving her eyes as they continued to fall. Naruto savagely pulled the bone out of his side and slid it into Kagaya's neck as they dropped, he had to make sure. The tear opened a dozen feet beneath the falling duo, leading to a grassy overhang from what Naruto could see, Naruto blanched, fuck, ground. Naruto smacked into the earth with a vengeance, the all-killing ash bone in his ribs driving deeper into his body, ah fuck. He shouted, casting his eyes around he surveyed his surroundings, Kagaya's body at his side, good no one nearby, he didn't have long, the bone was in his lung now, it won't be long. Commanding 9 of his truth-seeking balls, he molded them into a vaguely human shapes, using the power of creation of all things, much like the old sage, he couldn't just let them out for others to use, they needed a way to keep themselves from being sealed. With a grunt, he pushed the souls of each Bijuu into one of the forms, along with a portion of power proportionate to the number of tails they owned, he made sure to leave a bit of his own power for each of them as well, he knew they might miss him. I wonder if this is how Old Man Sage felt when he made them the first time, Naruto rolled onto his back, exhaling sharply before he gazed off to his left, he must have landed on a cliffside, the sunset was really pretty. Naruto. He blinked slowly as forms filled his vision, if the 9 tails meant anything, it was Kurama. He had really soft features though, long hair too, odd, though that was okay, it was orange. Hey guys, sorry it took so long, he spoke as a cough interrupted him, racking his body, hey it's fine. Why was Kurama's voice so high? How do you guys like the bodies? I had to work quick, I wanted to give you guys your old bodies, but I had to use something I was more familiar with haha, he tried to be cheery, dying really hurt though, so grinning and laughing was a touch difficult. We love them, now be quite okay. Matatabi and I are gonna start healing you, casting his eyes downwards he gasped softly, Kurama had tits. Kurama. You're a woman. He was shocked as hell, is this my fault? Damn it, I'm sorry, buddy, Naruto felt his voice soften as the warmth of Kurama's chakra invaded his system. BSH, don't worry about it, brat haha. I still kick ass. Kurama spoke back, even as she desperately tried to push chakra into her former host's body, what did I say about talking? You're making this hard for us, you know. Kurama felt strange, her throat was tight and her eyes kept blurring for some reason, hey, are you crying Ku? Naruto spoke softly before a cough ripped through his lips, blood spattered across his mouth and face. Stop talking, damn it. Kurama pushed more chakra into him, trying to will his injuries to heal. Hey, it's okay Ku, we both know I was done the instant that old bitch put her first all killing thingies in my side. Naruto stretched his arm out and whipped the tears off of Kurama's cheek. Almost 17 years of constantly fighting, and here was the beast of malice, crying over his dying body. Ironic. It'll be okay guys, you have each other, look after each other, okay? Otherwise, I'll have to leave my rest to set you all straight, in some weird way, I kinda am like your old man now. Kagaya was beaten, his world was safe, and he even saved the Biju. He was awesome Dadabeo. He smiled up at Kurama, her hair was really pretty, you know, at least, I did a few things right, you have really pretty hair now. Kurama could feel her chest tightening in despair, even as Naruto's breathing grew more labored. The other 8 Biju had already stepped back to allow them some privacy. Madatabi had grabbed her shield briefly as she walked away, tears falling from her face. Why yeah, thank you Naruto haha. She grabbed the hand on her cheek and held onto it like a lifeline. He was such an idiot. I'm glad this is where I'll die. The view is really beautiful. Kurama looked up and saw the sunset that had caught Naruto's eyes. Yeah, it's like the world is sending you off brat. Still on brat huh? I guess I can live with that, Naruto chuckled, even as his vision began to rapidly fade, his grip slowly slackening. Naruto, please don't go, we still need you. Kurama was desperate, anything just God please anything to keep this magnificent person alive. Hey, it's okay Ku, protect your brothers and sisters, do it for me, okay? Naruto spoke softly with a grin as his eyes slid closed, never seeing the frantic nod as Kurama clutched his hand tighter. I swear. He'll keep everyone safe. I promise. My promise of a lifetime you know. Kurama hated this, emotions were the worst. Looks like I did really well with making you all as human as possible. You even have a tick, like me and mom, well, welcome to the family, Kurama. Naruto eased his smile, soft and bittersweet. He was really tired, this was a good place for a nice long rest, dying took a lot out of a man, saved the world, all his friends, stopped a goddess, and even became a father. How could a man as awesome as him find a better way to go? Cracking his eyes open one last time, he cast a bright bloody grin to Kurama as the light in his eyes finally faded. Take care, Kurama. Naruto. 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 Kurama shook his body, not yet. Damn it not yet. It wasn't right. Come on breathe. Come on. Naruto. Madatabi and Sun wrapped their arms around her, slowly pulling her away from the boy who had saved them all at the cost of his life. Naruto. Stop. Let me go. I can still save him. Naruto. That smile, that damn smile was still on his face. Son Goku was amazed. Kurama, the strongest and harshest of them, crying over a human, Naruto really was one of a kind. He whipped a stray tear as he held his wailing, well sister now, it didn't bother him too much Kurama was a hard ass either way, rest easy kid, you out of everyone, you've earned it. He gazed out into the sunset, it really was a beautiful place to die. Naruto opened his eyes slowly, before quickly sapping them shut, could somebody kill the sun, please? Fuck, a low groan escaped his lips. The hour awake I see, Naruto's eyes snapped wide open again, trying to locate the voice, easy child, I mean you no harm, the voice spoke, a calm settling over the blonde ninja. Yeah well excuse me for not trusting a disembodied voice, Naruto lamented, why can't I move either? He felt far too calm especially considering he could move, you are a soul now, nothing but thought and feeling, I would be amazed if you could move, and there was that voice, it was close, yet far, familiar and warming, but also strange and hollow, Naruto grimaced. He hated weird supernatural things. So I actually died huh? Man that blows, you are unusually calm about this revelation, the voice responded, well, I did save my friends, and I saved Kurama and her family now, man I screwed that up there isn't much reason for me to be worried, I died doing what I love to do, saving others, he felt a grin spread across his face, that's right, who's the man? Right here baby. So you are a hero then? The voice asked, it was curious as to how this person saw themselves, I won't say that, I don't like watching people suffer, you know. If it means my life, well, that's okay then, Naruto shrugged, people always put labels on things, to him, it just came down to doing the right thing, even if it means you get hurt. You are fascinating, most humans weep for more time when they are called upon, even those that others call heroes shed a tear at the life they can no longer lead. There was a certain praise in the voice calling to him, I could be upset I guess, a frown marred Naruto's face, but I don't see the point, I know they are all safe now and they can handle themselves, silence permeated the area. Long and drawn out, it was like people just didn't get it, if you didn't have to be sad, why would you be? Would you return to the land of the living if you could? The voice questioned, honest curiosity in its tone. Naruto rubbed his chin and thought, mulling the question over. Well yeah I suppose, I made Kurama cry, which sucks, so it'd be nice to make it up to her, not to mention I could have ramen again, man I'm gonna miss the hell out of ramen, Naruto sighed despondently, hey. Maybe this place had ramen. What is ramen? Outrage and shock quickly filled our resident blonde, ramen is the food of the gods. All shall worship the broth of life and noodles of knowledge. Came Naruto's vehement reply, how does someone not know its noodly goodness? The tinkling laughter reached his ears, oh my, I wasn't aware that I had made such a dish. The beat. Hum again, Naruto said as he swallowed softly, he was dead, he realized, this might just be the afterlife, heaven, aw fuck. Close, but not quite, you see, I am what you would call, an elder god, a primordial, I came before the cosmos, and I shall be hereafter, oh well when you put it, that how the hell did I bypass heaven? He screamed mid-sentence, this wasn't how it was supposed to go. He should have met his mom and dad in the Pure Land. Had bowls of ramen galore. It wasn't fair. My oh my you are excitable, you see, when you died, you did something no organic life before you has done, you ascended to the levels of godhood, to some that just means you became powerful, but really it is a state of mind, you accepted the cycle of life, understood the ins and outs of creation and destruction, frankly, and in layman's terms, you got really lucky as you died. The voice informed, it wasn't every day a mortal breathed life into the world, to handle souls as easily as he had, was unheard of. Naruto shook his head as he laughed haha well Kakashi did say I had the luck of the devil, so did pervy sage come to think of it, and old lady Tsunade, huh, Naruto grasped his chin and thought, looking back to it, he really was good at poker and games of chance. Oh my, it seems you have truly earned the right to be called a god, few can move in my presence, yet here you are making it look easy, what are you talking about lady? I still can't Naruto spoke as he pointed a finger into the empty void around him, pointed, his arm and hand, it moved. Holy shit. I can move. Awesome. Naruto shouted as he began to do a small jig. Haha marvelous, just marvelous, the voice spoke again, before a bright light flashed in front of Naruto, what is it with being dead and brightness? It was like some sick joke, heaven. White, meeting the old sage. White, hospitals. White. Give a man a break. The woman stood before him now, a long flowing white gown, rainbow-colored tresses cascaded down her form, soft angular features and eyes that may as well be beams of light in their brightness. Yes, you can, move that is, so tell me, if I granted you a way to go back to the last world you were on, would you? I much enjoyed watching your life, I would be remiss to not see it continue, the goddess spoke, even as Naruto stared at her in abject shock and awe, damn she was pretty. Why thank you, but that doesn't exactly answer my question. Naruto shrugged as he sat down, trying and failing to remove the blush from his face at the all-powerful being hearing his thoughts, doesn't that go against the cosmic balance or something like that? I died, shouldn't I, stay dead. He spoke, honestly confused. If you were merely immortal, yes, you die, go to one of the many afterlives serve time there, then become reincarnated, however as you are now a god, you now have the choice on just going back, though you would have to act as an actual god of something, things like love or luck, and you won't be able to interact with your friends. Let's see how this human handled a chance at being all-powerful. And that kinda dampens the whole point of going back, Naruto leaned back onto his hands, crossing his legs, a deep look of concentration on his features before inspiration struck him. Hey. What about being reincarnated? He looked up at the elder god, he won't be as awesome, but then he could be with his friends right? Sorry, what? You would give up being a higher god, just like that? The being spoke, shock coloring her words, never in all the potential gods she had judged had any said this. Well I may not remember my friends if I become reincarnated, but I could meet them again right? You could reincarnate me in the place I'm most likely to meet them all again, couldn't you? Naruto spoke, waving his hands in an exuberant manner, trying to use them to convey his idea. Well yes, but there is still no way of Naruto cut the almighty off, then let's do that. You can watch me grow to be a super badass again, I get to meet my friends and make new ones, and we don't fuck up the balance of the universe. The being stared, it truly couldn't comprehend the young man in front of her. But, why? Would it not be better to watch over them from on high? Would this mortal really give up ultimate power for other mortals? Not if I can't help them when they're hurt or scared or lost, I know I can't go back to my world, I can feel that much, the world I landed in, it was different, the way it felt was off, but the Biju, Kurama most of all, still needs someone to help them, I can't really do that as a god, now can I? Naruto spoke, as if it was the simplest thing in the world, and to him it was, power meant nothing if he couldn't use it to help his friends. You truly are one of a kind, aren't you Naruto? Fine, I suppose we can do this a different way for once. I will personally reincarnate you into that world and put you on the closet path to your friends. In return, all I ask is a good show. Being an all-power goddess is woefully boring. That tinkling laugh again. It was pretty if Naruto was honest. You got a deal. Hey, what should I call you? I can't just call you after all. Naruto felt like an ass. A whole conversation, and he never asked for a name. He really needed to work on his manners. I do not have a name, I have existed for all time child, a name wasn't necessary. A frown marred Naruto's face once more. Well, that's not right. Everyone deserves a name. How about Megami? It's a little unoriginal, but it really does fit you to a T. Haha, Naruto scratched the back of his head with a grin, a little nervous at being so informal with well God, I suppose if that is what you wish, Megami. Naruto smiled a little, seems like he was on God's good side. Suddenly a thought struck him, hey, Megami, is there any way I can keep certain memories? I know it might be asking for too much. Consider it down, you stopped a world-killing beast, saved the lives of thousands, millions even, and you've even given me the gift of a name. I can spare you a few powers and skills. The goddess spoke, she had expected such a request. Not that, can you let me remember Kurama and the others? I wanna know them when I see them, so I can apologize. Naruto spoke, he still felt like an ass, mad at Tabi, and Ku looked so hurt as he lay there, he owed them something. The goddess stared at the blonde, an unreadable look on her face. Alright, hold still, things are about to get very uncomfortable for you. To reincarnate you, I must seal your powers, doing so will make moving, or even seeing me, impossible, the goddess warned. Aw, that sucks, I hate not. It was like a dam burst on top of him, an unholy weight barred down on him, freezing him mid-word. Panic filled his heart before his world once again went black. Inside the Gremory-owned territory of Kuo, a child wrapped in a blanket was set at the steps of an orphanage, two blonde fox ears poking out, a small mew left the infant's lips as a soft hand rubbed its cheek. Megami looked at the child, knowing what kind of life he was set to lead, heartache, joy, sorrow, love, peace, war. It was a never-ending battle with this boy, one that he thrived in. Megami disappeared in a flash of light, the only thing to alert the matron of the orphanage who had been on her way to bed. Megami watched on, hidden from the senses of the world. Now then Naruto, give me a good show, she said to herself as the matron opened the front door and gasped at the small bundle at her feet. What on earth? Who left a child out here in the cold? Come here sweetie, let's get you inside to somewhere nice and warm. She waved her finger softly in front of the infant's face, taking notice of the two animal ears upon his head and the name sewed into the blanket, Naruto, a young Yakai fox by the look of him. The poor dear's mother must have abandoned him, the middle-aged woman thought to herself, softly brushing the blonde ears atop Naruto's head. Come on now, I bet you're hungry. Happy little gurgles met her words as the infant gave what would pass for a smile. I can't believe someone would leave such a cute baby, the old matron thought to herself, some people could be so deplorable. The 10-year-old Naruto gazed out the large window before him, the bright sun shining down on the yard outside. He hated being cooped up, but Granny Iho made it clear more than once, he wasn't allowed outside right now. It was made worse by the fact one of his best friends was leaving, having been adopted by the Citri family, one of the most prominent families in the area. Ima-chan was so lucky. Naruto sighed, leaning on his arms in abject boredom. Sometimes he lamented being born a Yakai. Sure, they had things like enhanced senses, fluffy tails, and great physicality, something that had helped Naruto more than once in the last few years, but no one really liked them. The families that came to see the young orphans here never asked about him. He never got to meet any of the families either. If Naruto didn't know any better, he'd say Granny Iho was hiding him from the world. Naruto hung his head, he was gonna miss Hime, she was always really nice to him and loved petting his ears. It was the best. He never did figure out why she turned red around him though, maybe it was a secret like Granny said his tails were. At least Kyudo was still here, Naruto thought, they were as thick as thieves. Wherever one was, the other was sure to be close by, and both Naruto and Kyudo got in trouble more than once together. A lot of the new caretakers always thought they were brothers, what with their shared passion for troublemaking and similar looks. Unfortunately Kyudo went to church today, something about a volunteer youth group thingy. Naruto wasn't really listening, he was never a big fan of the church, but to each his own, so he was stuck inside, alone, and bored as all hell. In the center of the shopping district, a fair-skinned woman felt a shiver of dread move through her spine. Naruto perked up, the tails that had lazed on the floor behind him suddenly swaying happily, struck by sudden inspiration for mischief, he was gonna go into town. Granny Iho had recently taught him some illusions that allowed him to hide his ears and tails, so if he wore a hoodie, it shouldn't be a problem. With the plan set, he made his move, sneaking as quietly through the orphanage as a 10-year-old could, ducking behind doors to avoid the other caretakers. He didn't want to explain himself if he could avoid it, most of them avoid his room anyway, so it shouldn't be too hard. Okay, so maybe harder than he thought. The caretakers were running around like crazy, checking the rooms, maybe they lost something. Oh well. Naruto hummed as he walked down the street, passing a few strangers as he went. It was a really nice day out, low clouds, a bright sun, nice cross winds Komi. Naruto felt his nose twitch as a smell hit him. Once, twice, Naruto turned, trying to find a trail. He knew this smell, sand and heat, something copper too. Naruto closed his eyes and let his nose lead him. First a side street, then a back alley, many turns and steps which brought him out to the outer market district. Stalls lined the cobblestone street, and voices filled his ears, but Naruto paid it no mind. That smell. Naruto felt a hit before the smell caught up to it. Stop that thief. A voice cried from down the street. A hoodie figure jumped up from where they had run into Naruto and immediately tore down the alley Naruto had just walked out of. Fig. The blonde lay there stunned for a moment, unsure of what the hell just happened. That smell assaulted his nose again, this time trailing the hooded figure. It was them. Naruto clambered to his feet and gave chase, hoping to find out just who they were. Left, right, straight, double back, over the fence, through the ruined house. It was taxing, trying to keep pace with the person running, but as they ducked into an old building, Naruto hoped the chase was over. He was cautious as he entered, trying his best not to spook the person he had spent a better part of 30 minutes following. As he came out the other side of the hole, he bore witness to a rundown-looking sleeping area, a couch which had seen better days, and a few ratty blankets sitting on the armrest. The hooded figure sat in front of the couch, on the floor, teeth cutting into the most likely stolen bread. It ate ravenously, quick to demolish the bread and lick its fingers clean. Naruto approached slowly, taking in his surroundings, and feeling sadness at the sorry state of the living arrangements. No one should have to live like this. Hey, are you okay? Naruto spoke, and the figure tensed. It took a large jump away from Naruto, trying to put as much space between it and the voice it had heard. Naruto stopped moving, afraid he had scared off the strange individual. The hooded figure turned to look at him, freezing in place as it did. It cocked its head to the side, a strange hum coming from the darkness of the hood. Naruto just put his hands up, trying to placate the individual. Father? A rough, though young voice spoke. Naruto had a perturbed look on his face. He most certainly was not a dad. The figure slowly reached for its hood, and for the first time, Naruto could see the strange black markings marring the figure's arms, like skewed words in a purple tint. The hood dropped away and Naruto took in the figure's face. It was a boy, a bit older than himself perhaps. He had soft features, with black circles around his eyes, almost like a raccoon. Twitching of the boy's dirty blonde hair drew Naruto's eyes to the top of his head, where two soft sandy-colored ears sat, twitching this way, and that as Naruto knew his own did. This was a Yakai, like him. Naruto moved closer to the boy, curiousness eating at his heart. As far as Naruto knew, he was the only Yakai in Kuo. To see another was a new experience for him. The boy drew closer to Naruto as well, shock and disbelief written in his eyes. And, Naruto. The rough voice came from the boy's lips, his hand reaching out to touch Naruto. Naruto was a little weirded out. How did this boy know his name? Then again, he was a Yakai too, maybe he knew Naruto's family. Naruto grew hopeful at the prospect. Yeah. That's my name, who are you? Naruto asked, as he stopped just in front of the other boy. The outstretched hand was inches from him, and Naruto felt compelled to reach out and touch it. So he did. Naruto's mind was assaulted by memories and visions, moments in time that had been ingrained into his core. Names and faces filled his head, one leaping forward at that moment. Shukaku, Naruto said in a daze. The memories had given him the boy's name. He was important, Naruto knew that much. He couldn't remember why though. They had fought together. They knew each other. Naruto fell, his legs losing strength as his young mind tried to process all the information that was being dumped on it. Naruto. A voice called out to him before his world turned dark. Shukaku sat there, the younger boy in his arms. What was going on? Naruto died. He had been there. Shukaku stretched out his sense, took everything about the boy in, his smell, his state of dress, his chakra. A scent lingered on him, a faint smell he hadn't known in a long time. Iho. That's right, she worked for the grimoires around here. Shukaku narrowed his eyes. Something was wrong with all this. She probably had the answers he needed. He picked up the lookalike in his arms and swung him over his shoulder. It was time to pay his old student a visit. She watched his back. It was always like this, that blonde hair, the extra fabric of his headband, the hand raised in a simple farewell. She always watched him walk into the screams and evil intent. Who was he? What did it mean? The man stopped, turning his head slightly so she could see the grin on his face. It was small, heartfelt. It filled her chest with warmth and the pit of her stomach with worry. I'm not doing this to save the world, you know. Just trying to save you. A soft laugh escapes his lips as he marches forward into the fight. She tried to scream for him, tell him to stop, make him turn around, anything. Her voice was silent though. She could see the others screaming as well, smashing on the wall of energy to try and do anything to stop him, but the barrier held. Damn him, damn that man. Let her help, damn it. The tears pricked at her eyes, she wanted to be so angry at him. Instead, she screamed in sorrow. Kunu awoke with a scream, her mother bursting into the room with a vengeance. The older woman had eyes of blood red, ready to tear the world down for her daughter. All that Yusaka saw was an empty room, her daughter softly crying while sitting up in bed. The mother sighed, relaxing her posture. It had been this way for the last few nights. A reoccurring nightmare had been plaguing her little girl, a blonde man, trapping her and a few others behind a barrier, and then walking off to fight some great evil. It's all Kunu ever recalled about the dream. Yusaka tightened the obi on her kimono, slowly she approached her daughter's bed and let the 8-year-old girl crawl into her arms. She didn't know why the girl was having these dreams, what it could mean for the future, she just wanted to comfort the sad child as best a mother could. SHHH, SHHHH, here baby girl, Kunu hugged her mother tightly, so fiercely, like she was a ghost about to vanish in the night. Yusaka just rubbed Kunu's back, letting her daughter release her sorrow. Yusaka rubbed her temples slowly, trying to ease the headache she felt. This last week had been strafed with issues, from her daughter's new fear of sleeping, to the visiting devil delegation, to her aunts and uncles once more becoming active. The ruler of the Yakai faction had a lot on her plate. Across from her sat 2 of the Yondai Mayu, 2 of the 4 leaders of the devil faction. Surzich's Lucifer, the Crimson Annihilation. Seraphol Leviathan, the Mistress of Absolution. 2 terrifying beings, people of unimaginable power. Right now, Yusaka had them both by the figurative balls. So let me recap, just to make sure I have this right. The Nekomata have been driven to near extinction in less than 2 weeks' time. For the crimes of one person, Yusaka slammed her hands on the desk, snapping the century-old piece of furniture like it were driftwood. The 2 Mayu kept a decent level of composure, and Yusaka hated them for it. Would it kill them to look a little guilty? Ah, yes, Kyubi-sama, Surzicha spoke softly, standing on formality. She had the devil faction dead to rights. If she pushed for a confrontation, the Mayu was unsure what would happen to the rest of devil kind. The other factions would use this as an excuse to end what was paused ages ago, and not a person would blame the Yakai for it. Yusaka sat back and slowly let the truth set in. How many are left? She asked, already fearing the answer. That we know of. 4, the criminal, 2 that are twins, taken in by the Phoenix family as peerage members, and the younger sister of the criminal, Shryan, Anekashu, Seraphol spoke softly. Shryan has opted to become part of my younger sister's peerage, Surzicha spoke. I want to meet all of them, even the criminal, Kuroka was it? Yusaka replied. Ah, that should mostly be easy enough to do. My sister loves Japanese culture and would have a field day out here. I can pull a few strings with the Phoenix family as well, however. Well, spit it out, Yusaka demanded impatiently. We don't know where Kuroka is, Kyubi-sama, Seraphol spoke, a tint of fear in her voice. She wanted to go ballistic, that was why the Nekomata had been hunted, all for want of a criminal. Instead she just sighed. So, how do you plan to make this situation right? She spoke after a moment. Ah, we have several individuals that are suspected to be the ringleaders of this atrocity in custody. We plan to put them on trial too. No, Yusaka interrupted. Sorry. Surzichas replied, unsure of what she meant. I would say you are, yes, Yusaka snarked, you want to put high-class devils on trial, in a court full of their own. You honestly expect any justice to be done like that? Yusaka stood from her ruined desk and walked to the large window behind her. We both know where you currently stand, Lucifer. The blood of thousands now rests on the hands of your people. For what? One lost soul. No, you will turn over all suspects you currently have detained and any pertinent details dealing with the accusations filed against them. Surzicha stood, indignation written on his features. Now what? Just a minute. You can. I am speaking. An unholy anger washed over the 2 Mayu, and with less than a half glance back at the 2, Yusaka made her point very clear. Shut up. We have lost a large part of our culture. I knew the mother of Nekomata, was a very dear friend. If you think for 1 second I am going to let this be swept under the rug. Yusaka took a deep breath, trying to calm her frayed nerves. All the suspects, all the details on what happened, we will conduct our own investigation and hold the trial. If the accused are found to be innocent or no concrete ties to the event can be established, we shall turn them back over to you. Surzichas let a small breath of relief, even as Sirfal seemed to turn to a relaxed puddle of goo in her chair. Unfortunately, that was when the other shoe dropped. However, if they are found guilty, we will execute them, publicly. Everything froze for the 2 Mayu. Surzichas wanted to scream out at the cruelty of the act, but he realized he was backed into a corner. I will give you 1 week, 1 week before the council and myself come for the accused personally. Yusaka spoke heavily. I want to meet the survivors in that time as well. Do not toy with me on this, Lucifer, you will not like the results. Even her war. That was the message both Surziches and Seraphil received. It grated them, hurt their pride, lay them bare. But there was nothing to be done. If they fought, it would be open season on all devil kind. It will be done. Isaka didn't turn to honor the Mayu with a bow as was custom, she didn't demand that they leave, she stood there, gazing at the setting sun, and tried to come to terms with what she had just set in motion. Iho paced back and forth in front of the bay window leading out to the front yard of the orphanage, at closing in on 50 years of age, Iho was still quite a beautiful woman, at a modest 5'7", with nary a wrinkle, most mistook her for someone in her early 20s, however, at this moment in time, she truly felt her age. Naruto was missing. She hadn't seen him all day, and that was something highly unusual, she only took him out on certain occasions, and even then it was to the village market or local library. Don't misunderstand, Iho loved Naruto like her own flesh and blood, as she did with most other children she cared for, but he was special. Iho knew she would one day likely be in major trouble for hiding Naruto from the world, but she could let others know the truth, aside from the fact that there should only be two others like him in the world, there was no telling who would try to influence Naruto to commit dark acts with his power, or worse kill him for it. As Iho made another pass by the window, she stopped, a figure was at the front gate, cloaked in a dark hood, and what seemed to be a body, draped over its shoulder, Iho ran outside to confront the strange individual, only to come up short. The body on the stranger's shoulder was wearing a lot of orange. Only one person would wear that much orange. Naruto. Iho screamed before taking a fighting stance, it may have been sometime since her last visit to the world of fighting, but that was her baby damn it. Still as hasty as ever, hup hup. Spoke the figure. Iho felt her arms go slack, her jaw soon following, it had been 15 years, but his voice was still as coarse and sweet as she last remembered. The figure pulled its hood back, letting the sun splash along his pale features, his sandy blonde hair, a stark contrast to the vibrant yellow of his eyes, those strange pupils stood out as well, matching the tribal marks that crisscrossed his face almost perfectly. Shusho, Iho spoke weakly. Shukaku grinned, a little madness seeping into his features, coming to this world and spending so much time among its inhabitants, had done much in the way of mellowing the sand spirit out, but even though some of that old crazy reared its head. It has been a while Iho, Shukaku spoke as he slowly walked toward his former pupil, are you just going to look at me, or are you going to take this kid and invite me in? He chuckled lightly, shrugging his right shoulder up and gesturing to Naruto. Oh, of course. Iho almost shouted, rushing over and taking the burden of weight from her diminutive teacher, please this way Shusho. Shukaku shook his head, a bemused expression on his face, same old Iho. Shukaku calmly sipped his tea, something one of the other orphanage assistants had been kind enough to bring him, taking in the small office he sat in, Iho had insisted he wait here while she put the strange look-alike to bed, and Shukaku felt kind enough to oblige her, he would get his questions answered either way. Still, it did perplex him, who was that boy? He looked so much like Naruto, and he called Miss Iho's shout. The eye shade and the facial features had incited his curiosity, but her shout had really made him wonder. Same look and name? Too unlikely to be a coincidence. Shukaku turned his head as the office door opened, Iho strolled through, a hand running through her hair and undoing the bun it had been kept up in, a deep sigh leaving her lips. Thank you for bringing Naruto here Shusho, I was terrified when I realized he had disappeared, Iho flopped into her chair, taking up the cup of tea that had been left for her, bless her assistant. I take it this isn't the first time this has happened. Not even close, that boy is the reason I have so many gray hairs. Shukaku chuckled, I won't be so sure, you are getting on in years Iho, he said cheekily. Oh look who's talking you old sand rat, Iho snapped back. Shukaku clutched his heart in jest, a hurt expression on his face, how could you Iho? I'm still a young man. I mean look at me. Just because you're short doesn't mean you're young Shusho, Iho deadpanned over her tea. Shukaku just chuckled, once more taking up his own glass. So, interesting lad, that Naruto, he spoke almost dismissively, had it been anyone but his student of 30 years, they may have missed his undertone. What do you want Shusho? Iho asked, her tone defensive, she loved her master, truly, but Naruto. Tell me about him, where did he come from? Who are his parents? Why is he still here? Iho cast a critical eye to her teacher, he had always been tough to read, but she had to try, for Naruto's sake. The old matron found him on the doorstep 10 years back, he was wrapped in a soft blanket, it had the name Naruto stitched into the fabric, she left him in my care, seeing our shared lineage, her and I are the only two to know what he really is, with her gone now, it fell to me to protect him, Iho spoke, closing her eyes in memory, the last years had been so very kind to her. Naruto had been a large reason for it. Shukaku took in his student's peaceful expression. You said protect him. Protect him from what? By my knowledge, there should only be 9 people in the world curious about him, all of which you know on some level. He was tipping his hand here slightly, but he trusted his student. What are you talking about, Shisho? Iho started, a little confused. Aren't you curious as to why there is another 9 tails in the world? 9 tails. Shukaku jumped to his feet. Well yes, I thought that's why you were here. Iho stood slowly, ready to fight and be killed by her teacher if need be. She knew she would lose, but damn it she would try. Iho, that boy might be someone far more important than a mere 9-tailed Yakai. We need to go to Kyudo, all of us. Shukaku spoke hurriedly, if this was true. Shisho, I can't do that. Iho cut him off. This world, I can't let them use a sweet boy like Naruto. Iho, you don't understand, the council needs to know this. Shukaku almost shouted, the fierceness in his voice almost making Iho flinch. A moment of silence reigned in the room, a tense stare down between master and student. Tell me why, tell me, and we'll go first thing tomorrow, Iho demanded softly. Iho, I can't. Shukaku tried to reason. Tell me. Shukaku looked at his student, the way she stood, her fingers clenched into fists. She would fight him, he realized. She would try to kill him, her own teacher, to protect that boy. Shukaku had to smile softly, even more convinced. Even when he wasn't aware of it, Naruto still had that power to make people care for him deeply. I need to let the others know, because that boy might be tied to all of our pasts. I told you the story right. Of how Yakai came to this world. At Iho's nod he continued, that was only a myth, a bedtime story, that the others and I created. We were brought here, and freed from a great evil by a certain man. He had fought a god to set us free, all of us, the Council of 9, we owe him a debt, and if Naruto is truly who I believe him to be, you think he is some descendant of that man? Iho asked, unsure of what he meant. No, I think he is something much more. Iho stood there for a moment, drinking in her master's face. He was so open right now, so sincere. Okay, it'll be coming with you though. Iho pointed a finger directly in Shukaku's face as she made her demand. They'd have it no other way, after all, a boy needs his mother, Shukaku chuckled. Iho just smiled a bit, well, as close as one could be anyway. Okay, time out, wait, explain, now. Yasaka spoke to the 3 in front of her uncle, his former student, and the aforementioned fox Yakai, an odd trio to be sure, and one that Yasaka really didn't want or need to deal with right now. As I was telling you, this is Naruto. I believe he is someone directly related to my siblings in my past. Shukaku spoke calmly, far too calmly in Yasaka's opinion. Yeah, I heard you, I'm just trying to make any sense of what you said. How does a 10-year-old relate to anything in your past? The Yakai leader shot back, irritation in her tone. Call the council and he'll be happy to explain. They need to hear this far more than you do in any case. Shukaku spoke, eyeing his niece calmly. He knew she was close to exploding, but he really didn't have tea. Excuse me. Yasaka screamed, slamming her hands into her table and jumping to her feet. I am the leader of the Yakai. Do you think that title means nothing? She glared at her uncle, anger drowning the room. The small blonde who had been mostly inattentive for the last 20 minutes stared at her wide-eyed, fear rolling off him in waves. For the moment, Shukaku started, before letting his presence fill the room. Yes, it means nothing. I have far more pressing issues with the council than you may ever realize. They must be brought together, the desert madman replied simply. The suffocating auras released by the 2 monsters gradually ebbed away, leaving Iho and Naruto with beads of sweat sliding down their faces. Yasaka looked her uncle in the eye, trying to gauge how important this really was. She really didn't like what she found. She cast her eyes to the young blonde, weighing him with her eyes, judging if the child was actually worthy of her time. A sigh. Fine, take them to the council chambers, it'll have everyone else gathered soon. Yasaka slumped in her chair in defeat. Sometimes, she hated being in charge. Thank you Yasaka-chan, I promise to make this up to you. Shukaku spoke as he led his 2 companions out of the room. Yasaka waved a dismissive hand in the door's direction, to spent really care at the moment. Ah, Miss Yasaka-sama mom, a young voice called, making Yasaka look up, as Shukaku stopped to look at his young charge. Naruto blushed a little at all the attention on him but soldiered on, thank you for having us, and sorry that we're causing so much trouble. Naruto looked at his feet for a moment, before bowing at the waist. Iho has taught him about manners, and how to act with important figures, and until now he had never put those skills to use. Yasaka seemed like a nice woman, and even he could tell she was dealing with a lot. The least he could do is show her he was somewhat worth the stress. Iho stared at Naruto incredulously, how come he didn't pay her that kind of respect? Shukaku felt his eyes widen a bit involuntarily. The Naruto he once knew wouldn't defer to someone like this, unless what they were doing was really important to him. Interesting. Isaka stared at the bowed boy, a small sense of curiosity taking hold. She glanced up at the older two of the trio and was pleasantly surprised at the shocked look on both their faces. A small grin stretched across the fox Yakai's lips, followed by a small chuckle. "It's quite alright, Naruto-san, was it? Go with my uncle, I'll have one of the monks bring refreshments in a few minutes." Yusaka spoke much more calmly, a small weight sliding off her shoulders. If nothing else, the boy was trying. Who was she to hold it against him? Naruto stood from his bow and gave a bright smile. With one more quick bow, he turned and ran out of the room, a shout of "Come on, granny. I want to explore some more." "Naruto, wait." Iho shouted as she raced out of the room after the wayward 10-year-old. "Interesting charge you have there, uncle," Yusaka spoke as she returned to the paperwork on her desk, a glance up to make sure the legendary Yakai had heard her. "Interesting isn't even the start of it, little Yaz, Shukaku spoke as he exited the office door. The paperweight that smashed into the wall after him only missing by centimeters. "I told you not to call me that. NGD. Iho groaned as she slumped against a decorative wall. This shrine was massive, and now, Naruto had managed to run off. Fantastic. "Naruto. When I find you I swear to Inari I'll ground you for a month." Iho shouted as she stomped her foot childishly. That brat could be so taxing sometimes. "I haven't seen you this riled up since you were a teenager, Iho-chan," her teacher's voice filled the hall. Iho spun on her heel and pointed a danity finger at her mentor. "You don't have to deal with a blonde hellion day in and out." She shouted. She was frustrated, annoyed, and worst of all hungry. "Let Naruto explore a bit, we'll be able to find him when we need to." Shukaku tried to assure his student from so long ago that he'll find trouble, one of the two. Iho hung her head before scratching her hair irritably. "Fine, just take me to the meeting room. I heard Yusaka-sama mention food and I'm too tired and hungry to deal with all this." Shukaku just chuckled before nodding his head forward and continuing down the hall. NGD. Naruto continued to run around with wild abandon. Well, the sights of this place really were amazing. He mostly was trying to find a place to think. Everything was happening too fast for him, and he just needed somewhere quiet to process it all. After awakening earlier that morning, Iho and Shukaku has been in such a rush to reach Kyudo that he hadn't been able to process what happened the day before. The visions he saw, what were they? They felt familiar in a way he couldn't explain. Humming to a stop in front of a large outdoor garden, he sighed. Why did he know Shukaku? He remembered bits and pieces, a fight against a monster of sand, red hair, a feeling of understanding, desperation, sorrow, relief, meeting the monster once more on better terms, a flash of pain, then it's a group of faces, each with their own distinct features, they were circled above him. Worry written on each of them. Naruto slowly trekked out into the open air, the soft caress of wind on his skin beckoning him forward. And that was it, names came and went in the blonde's mind, fleeting in nature, they were so important though, he should know all of them by heart, he could just feel it. Naruto stumbled back as he snapped back into focus on the world around him, the tree he had bounced off of standing mockingly in front of him, the pink petals falling slowly with the wind. Naruto scowled, at least no one saw that, releasing a sigh, the 10-year-old sat in the shade of the mighty sakura tree. What did everything mean? Why did Iho and Shukaku bring him here? Naruto tilted his head back and lightly smacked it against the bark of the sakura tree, eyes rolling up to take in the pretty petals as they danced from the branches. He hated not understanding, of not knowing who he was or what was going on. It was his adventurous and curious nature that made him yearn for anything that would connect to his past, of anything that would tell him who he was supposed to be. The petal drifted down slowly, Naruto's eyes tracking it the whole way until it landed on his cheek, as soft as a kiss. Green eyes and a thankful smile flashed in his mind and Naruto jolted, looking around, a gasp dragged his attention to the right and a flash of yellow made him stand. Is someone else here? Naruto thought to himself, hello? He began to circle the tree slowly, the wide base keeping the other person just out of sight. Naruto looked back to the shrine building, seeing no one else on the paths or walkways. Naruto stopped and pondered for a moment, his previous issues pushed aside, should he leave whoever was hitting from him alone, or trick them and figure out why they were watching him? With his mind made up and a firm nod, Naruto sat about silently scaling the tree between them. A young face poked out from the left side of the tree, cautiously looking for the blonde boy from a moment ago. Golden yellow eyes scanned the area as a young girl slowly moved from behind the tree. It was a little girl, perhaps 7 or 8 years of age, at a diminutive 4'1", with long hair spun from gold. She wore a traditional Maiko outfit with some slight adjustments. The white hori was a size too big and seemingly swallowing the girl from the neck down, stylized stitching decorating the sleeves. Her hair was also loose and flowing, as opposed to the traditional style of keeping it up with a red ribbon. She looked around the clearing of the tree, a slight disappointment on her face. It seems as if the boy she had saw had run off, not something she could really blame him for. She was hiding from him just a moment ago. She was just so shocked though. He looked so familiar, like an old friend, like she should know him like the back of her hand. The whisker-like marks on his cheeks were cute too. But the last few days had been catching up to her, and she just felt so nervous to talk to him. She had been so close to working up the nerve to speak up when the boy had suddenly snapped back to attention. Kunu sighed, slumping into a seated position just under the shade of the sakura tree. These last few weeks had been trying for the little girl. Nightmares, lack of sleep, the stress her mother was under with the Nekomata incident, not to mention the anger her no Obasama had been letting out in waves since news of the massacre had reached them. It was quite a lot to put an 8-year-old through. Kunu looked up as the sound of leaves shifting reached her ears, only to jump back in surprise when the boy from before landed in front of her on his back. Naruto groaned from his position. He had been trying to get a better look at the girl's face from the seat in the tree he had taken, but had slipped in his haste to move. "Oh no. Are you okay?" A slightly panicked voice filled Naruto's ears, soft and melodic. Naruto opened his eyes as a hand brushed his forehead before slowly sliding down his cheek. Kunu began to fuss over Naruto before he could reply, quickly looking him over for any obvious signs of damage. Her mother had told her a little about first aid, how to patch minor injuries and the like. Naruto just looked at the younger girl, bemusement clear on his face. He felt fine in all honesty, but this girl was acting like he had just taken a knife to the chest. Her hands worked swiftly, passing along his arms before stopping just above his left elbow. "We're gonna need to bandage this," the girl spoke to herself quietly, looking at his elbow closely. It was bleeding slightly and seemed mostly superficial, but could still get infected. Using her naturally sharpened canines, Kunu tore a bit of her sleeve and slowly began to wrap the small wound. I'm not sure that was necessary," Naruto said, watching as the small girl carefully wrap his arm. It was a scrap, really, no reason to ruin her clothes. It was like the world crashed back into focus for Kunu as Naruto spoke. With a startled gasp and a slight stumble back, Kunu was on her butt, blushing and stammering apologies for who knows what reason. Hey, calm down, it's fine." Naruto tried to placate the young girl, confused at a random response to his words. "I'm sorry for scaring you like that. I just thought someone was hiding from me, so I hid in the tree to figure out who. I didn't mean to surprise you." He carried on holding his hands up, trying to look as unthreatening as possible. Being only 10, what kind of threat he could be was open to doubt. Iho would have a very interesting opinion on that matter. Kunu took in the boy before her as she slowly calmed down. He had an easy smile on his face, and his blue eyes shined like crystal in the sunlight. He seemed so open, happy. Are you okay?" she asked softly, her previous nervousness melting away at his boyish grin. She had acted without really thinking when she saw the boy fall, so caught up in the moment she didn't even care if he had surprised her. Yeah, I heal pretty quickly in most cases. My granny says I have a healing factor or something," Naruto said, waving a hand with his bandaged arm. "You really didn't have to mess up your shirt like that." "Oh, my mom says you should always tend to an injury, no matter how superficial," Kunu replied, casting her eyes to the ground, fearing she may have offended him by acting so quickly. Nah, it's cool, I do appreciate it though. No one but my granny has ever bandaged me up that quick." Naruto smiled at the girl. She had been so precise about it, looking him over quickly and bandaging him even before anything was said. It was like she was a mini doctor. Kunu glanced up at Naruto's face and caught his bright smile. A small grin of her own worked its way forward. "I'm glad you're alright then. It'll take more than a tree to put me down." Hehe, Naruto laughed boastfully. "I'm Naruto by the way," he said, shooting his right hand forward for a handshake. "Naruto," Kunu tested the name. A pleasant smile stretched her lips as a fleeting feeling passed over her. It was a nice name, fitting. Kunu, she greeted, her own hand grasping his, and for a moment they just sat in peaceful silence. "Say, you wouldn't happen to know how to get to the council chambers, would you?" Naruto asked suddenly, looking a touch contrite. "Yes, I have lived here my whole life after all," Kunu spoke with a giggle. "Great. I was supposed to go there after meeting with Yasak-sama, but I kinda just needed a minute," Naruto replied, a far-off expression shifting onto his face. Kunu tilted her head slightly. "You met my mother?" she asked, confusion clear in her tone. Who was this boy? At first she had assumed he was just a lost tourist. No matter what feeling she had gotten about him, she would never have guessed he had a meeting with her Akasama. "Our mom is Yasaka-sama." Naruto pointed a surprised finger at the young girl before a look of realization crossed his face. "That means you're a Yakai too." Naruto shouted happily. Naruto was ecstatic. Aside from Granny Iho, Naruto only knew 2 other Yakai, only having met them in the last 2 days. This was awesome. Yeah, too?" Kunu asked, her head tilting cutely. Naruto nodded sharply before letting his illusion drop, his golden ears and tail spilling forth like sunlight through a window. Kunu gasped in surprise. It wasn't unusual to see other Yakai in Kyudo, far from it, but it was rare to meet a fox Yakai and should have been impossible to see a nine-tailed fox Yakai. Her mother and she were supposed to be the only two in existence. She slowly stretched a hand out and lightly pressed her fingers against the rounded triangular ears that were perched atop the blonde boy's head and drew a sharp breath as they flickered and twitched. They were real. Kunu felt her face light up in a smile as she let her own false image drop, her own ears and tails coming forth at will. Naruto gaped at the younger girl taking in her visage in stupefied wonder. Nine tails, he spoke softly, falling onto his butt in shock. How? Iho has never told him about others like him, she had said there was no one like him in the world. But this girl was. Kunu looked at Naruto's shocked face in concern. Of course, my mother is the nine-tailed Yakai as well, didn't you know that? She asked softly. Naruto slowly shook his head, eyes lingering on the tails of the younger girl. Did this mean they were family? Was Yusaka his mother as well? Or did he have family here in Kyudo? Was that why Shukaku? Naruto looked up. Shukaku, do you know who that is? He asked, far more serious than a 10-year had any need to be. Kunu took a step back at the tone, even as she nodded. My mother talks about someone with that name every so often with Oba-sama and Oji-sama. Naruto stood, a fierce look crossing his face. That was it then, Shukaku was trying to bring him back to his family, but why had Iho hidden him from everyone? Was she the one who took him? Or did his family abandon him? I need you to take to the council chamber, I have to know what's going on, Naruto spoke, looking Kunu in the eye. A hesitant nod was his reply, before taking Naruto's hand and pulling him inside. She had questions of her own after all. Like, did she just meet her long-lost brother? NGD. The shouting in the room was telling, a debate had devolved into a childish argument, who was wrong, who was right. It didn't matter at this point, all that could be heard was screaming. Shukaku had assumed his brothers and sisters, those that had decided to show up in any case, would be happy with his discovery. Apparently, they were furious. I don't care what you think. He has been dead for centuries, you were there Shukaku, we all were, we saw him pass, and now you have the goddamn audacity to suggest he is alive. An older man shouted, he stood at a solid 6'1", with a black kimono wrapped around his body, a ornamental cane rested in his right hand, being gripped tightly in anger, his grey hair was held back in cornrows, with black shades covering his eyes, even while indoors, a strange black mark sat just under his left eye. This was Jiki, current chair of the Council of Nine and Octopop of Eight Blades, a master swordsman, an excellent politician. Brother, you have to meet the boy. You can't just push this aside. You know what we've seen in this world, the miracles that this planet is capable of, who's to say it didn't seem his life necessary? Shukaku tried to reason. After Naruto had freed them in this plane, they had lived countless years, helping as they could, a whole society had sprung from their interference in this world, they had borne witness to countless impossibilities, why could they see this was one of them? Diki is right Kaku-kun, we saw him die, a soft voice cut the shouting, all parties took in the 5'6" frame of a beautiful blue-haired girl, it was cut short, framing her face beautifully, her heterochromatic eyes, a shining yellow and jade green, showed the hurt the current conversation was placing in her heart. Her clothes consisted on a simple pair of jeans and jade green t-shirt. She was Matatabi, queen of the Nekomata. Shukaku honestly felt bad for dropping this on her now, considering the loss she was currently struck with after years of living promiscuously, of giving birth to a race of people that could all be traced back to her. The blow she had been dealt was harsh, too harsh. Matatabi, I understand, I do, but he knows me, knows my name, he recognized me, we can't just ignore this, Shukaku spoke in almost a whisper, if there was even a chance this was their Naruto. Matatabi looked at the table, mulling the words in her head. So where is the brat then? You said you brought him with you, if he really is Naruto, and I'm not saying I believe he is, why isn't he here? The gruff voice called from the opposite end of the table, a burly man, 5'10", and with a beard of bright red flowing along his jaw to his hairline, a scar was nestled over his right eye as running towards his ear, he was decked in a burgundy suit, with a white undershirt. Son Goku, Monkey King under the sun, a voice of both reason, shocking in of itself, and disbelief, he didn't take much stock in the miracles of the world and passed them off as strange one-time things whenever they did appear, a healthy skeptic as he liked to call himself. I let him continue exploring the grounds for a little, coming into contact with me put him down for quite a while, after all, Shukaku replied, he had wanted the boy to familiarize himself with the area, if everything worked out, Naruto may be spending quite a bit of time here. The chamber doors opened and stumbled said blonde, with Kunu in tow, they both froze as 8 pairs of eyes locked on them. Hi. Naruto spoke lamely, getting a quiet giggle from his new friend. Shukaku felt a palm slide down his face at the strange entrance, but couldn't fault the boy, from what he remembered, that was just like Naruto. The bubbling laugh left a pale-skinned girl in one corner, an ornamental pipe that released bubbles in one hand. Her hair was a dull gray, with of wide eyes tinged in blue, all eyes focused on her as she spoke. Well, if nothing else, he certainly makes an entrance like the boy of old, her mind thinking back to the first time Naruto and Utakata met. Seiken, medicine woman of the mansion, a world-class toxicologist and medical professional in their new world. The grumble met her words as several others cast doubtful eyes on the blonde still standing by the door. Naruto let his eyes harden as those words reached him. What do you mean, do you know who I am? The boy demanded. A silence fell over the room like a shroud as each person gazed at the boy curiously. Enough secrets. What's going on? Why didn't anyone tell me I have family? Naruto almost shouted as he allowed his illusion to fall. The gasp left the group at the table as 9 luscious tales of gold spilled forth. Do you see now why I demanded you meet him? Shukaku spoke directly at Chiki, who kept his glasses focused on the boy by the door. Naruto stared at the assembled council members, keen eyes taking in every face and detail. They all looked so familiar, faces and names going together like jigsaw pieces. The silence in the room was palpable, not a soul spoke. Why did he know them? How come they had never interacted before if he did? Welcome back Naruto, I see you didn't get into trouble while exploring. A disinterested nod was Shukaku's reply, the blonde still focused on the other 7 in the room. So you're the one Shukaku has been raving about. Tiny thing a wrench ah. A slightly giggly voice spoke. Naruto cast his eyes to the strange man with his feet propped on the table. You couldn't tell his height, but he looked slim, almost wiry in nature. A wide smile split his face, one that unnerved Naruto. It was almost predatory. Bright orange eyes shone in the low light of the chamber, and his skin held an odd green hue. May, it came to him. Known to the rest of the council as Lucky 7, to the rest of the world in the know as the Beetle Shield Soldier, a master lancer and brilliant tactician, known to pull enemies in with his happy-go-lucky attitude and blindsiding them with lightning fast strikes, fast, deadly, insane. My name is Naruto. The blonde retorted, this was supposed to be some kind of council, they could at least use his name. Oh yes, of that we have been assured, multiple times, the orange-eyed man spoke with a slight chuckle, casting his eyes to Shukaku. I can see what you mean, this boy is very fierce, same kind of fire. Naruto tilted his head at those words, but before he could question what May meant, something wet and slimy dragged across his foot. He reacted the way any child would. Naruto was now kneeling on the table, unheading of the bemused smiles on a number of council members' faces. What the hell was that? Naruto. Language. Iho shouted from the other side of the chamber. The hell with that. Something just went over my foot. Over here Blondie, Chmei spoke, now holding up what could amount to a small child. It was a boy, looking between 8 or 9, a robe was wrapped around him and his hair was cut short but still allowed his bangs to cover his eyes, a finger was pressed to his chin, a thoughtful look across his face, not caring of his odd position. His taste is similar, earthy, wholesome, mumbled out the boy. Asobu, the premier poison user of the Yakai faction, concoctions powerful enough to kill even a god it was said. Also one of the leading members of the magical community the world over, if it was a spell or ruin, Asobu was said to know it. Did you really have to do that? Chmei asked the gray-haired boy, his orange eyes looking into the red on red of the boy he held above the ground, now turned toward himself. The silent nod was his only reply, which caused the lancer to drop the boy with a sigh. Naruto watched the young boy amble back to his seat and plop down, silent the whole trip. Okay, now he was weirded out. He don't mind them young man, a shy voice spoke from Naruto's left, causing the boy once more to jump, this time it was a girl. Blinding white hair, even in the low light, with dark blue-green eyes, she appeared in her early teens, wrapped in off-tan-colored kimono. Akam, emissary of the Council of 9, and declared by popular vote as the most adorable supernatural being in all of Kyudo. She held a certain level of hesitance in her manners, but she was still as deadly as they came. The sudden motion of the blonde had made the girl flinch, and immediately Naruto felt bad. I am sorry. You surprised me, the blonde tried to excuse his knee-jerk reaction. A simple wave of the hand and a shy smile was his reward. It's fine, no harm done, she spoke with a soft smile. Naruto turned on the spot, taking in the 8 faces before him, something about this whole setup felt weirdly familiar, but he couldn't place it. Hold up. You guys are the Council of 9 right? Why is there only 8 of you? The blonde asked, tilting his head. While anyone else would ask why they were here, of course Naruto touched on the subject no one else would think of first. That is a discussion for another time Naruto, for now, the council would like to speak with you. Shukaku forestalled any arguments or reaction to Naruto's question. The council knew the truth, some still under its influence even, Naruto would know in due time. That rat is right, Jiki spoke gruffly, he was still annoyed at this whole situation and was adamantly against any of this farce being real. You told Shukaku your name is Naruto, right? Ah, yeah. Naruto replied nervously, what was wrong with his name? You must see it brother. Who else could he be? Shukaku once more asserted, why was Jiki being so difficult about this? It could be anyone else. So the kid is a fox Yakai, big deal, that does not make him. Be reasonable Jiu-kun, you have to admit, it is a compelling argument, the resemblance is uncanny and, hello, fox. Seiken chimed, well she wasn't completely convinced, it was a bit of an oddity in her opinion. There was no other nine-tailed Yakai, period, for this boy to be one raised a hell of a lot of questions. Yes, Fox Yakai, the man we knew, the man we remember was human, to even suggest this boy is anything like him is an insult, and I will not stand by while you bastardize his memory on some child. The bull roared, slamming a hand in the tabletop and spitterwitting it. Naruto flinched back from his place and cast his eyes in the floor, they were talking about him, that much he could gather, but he didn't know what had angered the eight tails so. That seemed a little unnecessary, the bland voice of Isobu resounded off the chamber walls. All eyes turned to the diminutive Yakai, it wasn't often the three tails spoke, so when he did, others listened. I have already told you, he tastes the same, his chakra is a match, should that not be enough for you? The boy continued, his eyes peeking out from beneath his hair. We have seen this sort of thing in the past Isobu, how can you be so certain that he is who he claims? Jiki shot back, it won't be the first time a chakra imprint was detected on someone of no relation to the original, this world had an odd way of throwing logic and reason out the window. What's that supposed to mean? I haven't claimed to be anyone but myself. Naruto suddenly shouted, drawing the bull's sharp gaze back to himself. He didn't flinch in the slightest, something screamed at him to defy the council chair, something instinctual. Ahaha well, he certainly glares like the man we knew, holds that same passion as well, Sun spoke up, a roguish grin on his face. It was impossible not to see it in the boy, that defiance, that unbreakable will that had shocked him so much the first time Sun had met the blonde. Perhaps it wasn't the exact same man, but there was an alternative. Naruto-san, do you know who we are? Madatabi spoke softly, leaning against the table, her eyes searching for something. Naruto looked at the woman, a sense of familiarity passing through him, it was the same with all of them, he knew these people, he just didn't know how. Some council, Shukaku said you were some big council for the Yakai people, the blonde replied hesitantly, assuming that was the question being asked. It wasn't. Madatabi laughed softly, shaking her head, no Naruto-kun, not our titles, do you know who we are? Naruto stared back, his eyes bouncing from face to face, he parted his lips slowly. Familiar, all of you, I know each and every one of you and I don't know why, the words tumbled out, bringing a harsh silence to the chamber. Shukaku looked relieved as he watched Madatabi relax at the words, she had been under so much stress and pressure, that was the first time he had seen her relax in days. I believe you might Naruto-kun, the two-tailed replied, a soft smile on her face, this week had been, hell, pure unbridled hell, she had lost all forms of family, but maybe, possibly, hopefully, she had found someone lost once long ago. Madatabi. You can't Siryu. I do, the two-tailed cut off the bull-headed council leader, she could see the honesty in the boy, and his soul sang with pure unadulterated truth, he knew them, he recognized them, and not even as the council. As something more, something intimate. Madatabi believed him, he may not be the exact same Naruto, but part of the unruly blonde was there, buried in the boy, she was always gifted in the art of spiritual awareness, this boy, something spoke out to her about him. Jiki, there has to be some way to make you see this isn't a trick or some false hope, Hess here, Shukaku spoke softly, everyone else seemed more or less on board with the idea, Jiki was the only holdout. As usual. What is your problem with me anyway Octopops? Naruto asked, his eyes shutting slightly in annoyance, that guy had seemed against his very existence from the moment he walked in. Jerk. Utter, deafening silence washed over the chamber, something that shocked and concerned Iho and Kunu immensely. Kunu has never seen the council in this much of a tizzy, and it threw her, she was pretty sure she'd never seen them all together in the first place. Iho was more worried than anything, these people could very well kill Naruto, without much of a thought. And the boy had gone and called one of the strongest there such a name. What did you just call me? Jiki sat down slowly, a longing, reminiscing look on his face. Jiki was a no-nonsense kind of person, he didn't believe in coincidence or happenstance, he believed what he could see, shape and mold, anything aside from that, anything open to interpretation, was left for the birds. But that name, that damn name. Octopops, you know, old dude that has octopus tentacles. I think it's pretty clever, much better than how you called Shukaku, Hess not a rat. The blonde started out slow, but quickly gained steam. No one insults his friends, and if this jerk was gonna make a nickname for Shukaku, well, he was gonna get one right back. Everyone else waited on bated breath. The council knew what that name meant to Jiki. He had often talked about how their Naruto addressed his former host when they first got here. His death and their subsequent freedom left them dazed, and for weeks they simply camped out by his grave and reminisced what little they could. Octopops. A name that would never leave Jiki, a name connected to the person that originally changed him for the better, his first friend. I think it's pretty clear what this all is, when you think about it, Seiken spoke after a moment, leaning in her chair. So you were of the same thought. I was wondering if it struck anyone else, Sun spoke, following along the same tangent. Well, of course. What else could it be? Yeah, the man we knew died, that much is obvious, blatant even, but so have Asobu and Kakum, Seiken replied like it wasn't a big deal. Back in the elemental nations, they had never really feared death, living for hundreds of years, each of them had learned that death wasn't something final for them. They live, they die, they reform. It seemed that carried over into this world as well. What you talkin' about, lady? Asobu is right there, Naruto pointed to the small boy, getting a wave. Yes, he is, but I also remember him being killed in a conflict in northern Japan some years ago, Seiken replied, a knowing smile on her face. Yes, perhaps 8 or so years now, hasn't it been? Asobu replied, a thoughtful look on his face once more. But if you died, how are you here? Naruto asked, confusion clear on his face. The council all crossed eyes, each weighing if they should tell the boy or not. That decision was swiftly taken from them. Think of it as a form of reincarnation, Jiki spoke, eyes still on the table. When a member of the council dies, after a few years, the chakra we embody recoalesces and the member is reborn. Naruto felt his eyes widen at that, so, these guys were effectively immortal. That's awesome. The blonde shouted in excitement. Several amused expressions met his outburst. Perhaps, maybe for some it is amazing, for us, it is more an inconvenience. We are not reborn as we were, we are reborn anew, growing, learning, struggling. We must age and grow before our memories come back to us, 2 years for each tale, Asobu explained. He looked at Naruto calculatively, wondering if the blonde understood his words. Actually that kinda sounds like it sucks. What happens if you learn to be someone different as you grow? Naruto spoke softly as the idea sank in. What if you were treated poorly as you grew? Or weren't around the people who knew you? What if someone evil began teaching the higher level members of the council throughout their childhood? Would they receive their memories and be different people? Or would all that hate and anger overshadow the life they now remembered? Exactly, what if the other council members aren't around to help with the transition? What if one of the most powerful beings in the world is subject to cruelty and hate as they grow and upon unlocking their powers, decided to slaughter their tormentors? Shukaku spoke softly, eyes strictly focused. The bull needed to understand that Naruto could possibly be a danger unless they helped shape him. Because he believed Naruto, for whatever reason, after so many centuries, had been reincarnated as well. That's awful, Naruto spoke softly, his eyes downcast. A heavy silence descended on the room, and for a moment, everyone just became lost in their thoughts. It'll do it then, Naruto spoke suddenly, his fierce blue eyes catching the council off guard. Do, what exactly? Shukaku asked, honestly confused at the strange outburst. It'll help you find your lost member. No one should be forced to be away from their family, and if they are raised by someone bad, you'll have to fight them right. That's not fair. Naruto spoke forcefully, his answers would come in time, the blonde rationalized to himself, family should come first. The council looked at one another carefully, what was this kid talking about? That is why you brought me here, isn't it? The last member has to be a nine tails like Yasaka-sama, Kunu and me, right? You want me to help find them and bring them home? Naruto folded his arms resolutely, a firm nod leaving him. To him, it made sense, while he might not be directly related to whoever the council member was, he was sure he could help in some way. Laughter left Jiki before he could stop it, a soft chuckle at first, that slowly built to a loud bellow. Naruto seemed to take offense if his indigent expression was anything to go by. What's so funny, old man? I just said it'd help you. The boy yelled, a finger pointed at the octopus in human form. Jiki took a moment to calm himself, soft chuckles still escaping him, he crossed eyes with Shukaku, and that was all it took for the one tail to understand. That's not why you were brought here, Naruto-san, Jiki started, though we do appreciate the help, we already have the 9th member under our protection and are just waiting till they regain their memories. Oh, huh, the blonde replied stupidly, not that he could be blamed, what did they want with him then? Tell me, Naruto-kun, have you ever heard the legend of the old man of the mountain? Madatabi asked, a soft smile taking her face as she noticed the tension leave the de facto leader of their little group. Not really. The old lady didn't tell me many fairy tales. She said I should focus on important stuff like math and history. Naruto made a face here, lightly glaring at Iho in the corner. And I was right. Your grades are still terrible. The woman shouted from her place, shaking a fist at the blonde. She growled lowly when Naruto stuck his tongue out at her. Be that as it may, Shukaku interrupted, the old man of the mountain isn't merely a fairy tale, it is a vital piece of history for the Yakai people, it's the tale of how we all came to be. Every sect, every people, have their own origin stories, Yakai are just the same, it all started with a kind man, and the lovely view he thought Mount Fiji provided. Chmei spoke, an easy smile on his face, far and away better than the slightly mad one before. He breathed life into us from his power, and from us, the Yakai came to be, his strength and skill, his passion and kindness, helped birth a whole new race, a strong, independent people, Sun spoke passionately. And all too soon, he was gone from us, he who we could have called father, fading to the wind like a ghosting breeze, taken by one who would see us abused for our power, Isobu spoke, melancholy clear and proudly displayed. But we never forgot the ideals he passed to us, the kindness he showed us, or the sacrifice he made for us, Seiken carried on, her chin resting in her hands, eyes shining brightly. We have tried to pass these teachings on to the next generations, preaching peace where we can, but strength in action when violence is the only resort, Jiki spoke firmly. Isaka is a direct descendant of that power, that kindness, just as her daughter after her, the ninth member of our council was the one closest to the old man, and from that, she gained his ability to grant life in all of its forms, Kakum spoke after, a soft gentle voice carrying throughout the room. She loved him, wept for days at his passing, they were like lovers in their understanding of one another, and she wanted nothing more than to express that love. Yusaka is the first, and only, pure Yakai born of that power and emotion, she is the culmination of heartache and sorrow, and she is the leader of Yakai because of it, Matatabi said, a small, sad smile on her face. They were embellishing the story to all hell, but it was better this way, too much for the boy too soon would possibly scare him away. We have dedicated our lives, our families, our friends to seeing peace be kept in the name of our ninth and our father, to the understanding they both strived so hard for. Our ninth gave her life, saving this world from a mighty cataclysm, until recently, she has been lost from this world, Shukaku continued, his eyes betraying nothing. I ask you here, because we want your help in protecting her, protecting this world, because on you, we see our father, Shukaku dropped the bomb. Naruto stood stock still, a shocked expression etched into his features, this. Hanyo looked on in disbelief, she had never heard this tale told so heavily, so full of emotion and hope. And they saw such a great man in this boy. Why? What made him so amazing? Why did they all seem so sure? But that doesn't make any sense. I'm an orphan. And nobody. How could I be related to a god? The blonde boy shouted, not grasping what was being put before him. Several chuckles met his declaration, he wasn't a god Naruto-kun, he was a man, an orphan, and for a very long time, he was a nobody, Matatabi smiled encouragingly. My brother brought you here because he saw it first, but even I can see it now, Jiki spoke up once more, leaning back in his chair, you cast aside your own reasons for storming this chamber, all under the pretense one of our family was lost in the world, the tall man gave a rumbling laugh, only one other man has ever had the same compassion. Will you stay with us Naruto? Learn our ways, learn our skills, help guide our people as we have fought, and bleed, and killed to do? Sun asked imploringly. Naruto cast his eyes around the chamber, and the only eyes that didn't look determined to convince him were Iho's, if only because of her concern for him. He didn't understand, he was no one, a kid in an orphanage, why was he being given this opportunity? Take it, a voice ghosted through his mind and sent a shiver down his spine. But, what if I mess it up? What if I do something wrong? He asked himself back, this was so much more than he could have ever expected. It wasn't the answers he was looking for, but it was answers nonetheless. Have faith, just as they do in you. Naruto felt his body relax at the soft words, a firm look entering his eyes. These people were asking for his help, for him to help them. Of course he would say yes. Naruto looked at the gathered council, a determined smile setting on his face, for the first time in minutes, he spoke. When do we start? The council couldn't have been happier. There are many oddities in the world, mystical things that leave even the most devoted followers of logic and reason scratching their heads. Things that simply, for one reason or another, shouldn't exist or make any sort of sense. For Iho, finding two of the four strongest devils said to exist sitting outside Lady Isaka's office, like grad schoolers outside the headmaster's, was one of those things. Surzich's Lucifer, the financier of the orphanage she oversaw and technically her boss. Serapho Leviathan, the undisputed strongest woman in the entirety of the underworld. Powerful beings that many feared and even more respected. Both looking positively cowed and, if Iho interpreted the expression correctly, pouting. Naruto tugged on Iho's sleeve, pulling her attention away from the two walking army killers, acting like they were in a timeout. Hey granny, I told you to stop calling me that brat. Yeah, but you didn't tell me why we have to see Asaka-sama again, and then you spaced out looking at tall, red, and pouting. Naruto pointed his thumb at the depressing form of Surzich's Lucifer. Usually, something like this won't get more than an annoyed lecture on politeness in public, maybe a bop on the head. However, seeing as the door to Yasaka's office opened at just the right moment for the ruler of Yakai to hear Naruto's declaration, such a thing had a far different outcome. Namely Yasaka hastily trying to cover the snort of laughter that left her at the blonde's words. Iho really wanted to hit the blonde brat beside her, but she knew such an action would undoubtedly look bad before the nine tails. She'd just have to get him later. Well, if Naruto-san here is finished making astute observations, the tone Yasaka spoke with had a touch of a laugh, and if possible, it looked like a storm cloud appeared over Surzich's hanging head. I would like to talk to you inside my office. The Yakai fox stood to the side and made room for the fox and dog duo to enter. Yasaka didn't comment on the light giggle she heard from Serafal as she shut the door behind her. Silence reigned for a moment in the hall. I'm not pouting. Serafal just laughed more prominently. NGD. I'm pleased you were so prompt in answering my summons. I understand these last few days haven't exactly been easy on you. Yasaka started the conversation as politely as possible. The poor blonde had a lot dropped on his plate, no reason to add more just yet. Iho, Naruto, please allow me to introduce you to both Rias Gremory, Surzich's Lucifer's younger sister, and her rook, Keko Taoju. Yasaka waved her hand towards two young girls sitting on one side of a decently sized chabudai. One girl, the smaller of the two, immediately grabbed Naruto's attention. Not even caring of his actions, Naruto found himself face to face with the white-haired girl, his nose twitching softly as something familiar called out to him. Keko for her part gave the first emotive response to outside stimuli in the better part of 2 weeks at the strange blonde's proximity. Namely she leaned back, her face equal parts blushing and blanched, he was too close. Naruto suddenly gained a doopy half-cocked smirk as his tails and ears shimmered into existence amidst a soft laugh, the sound of palm hitting flesh, and an amazed gasp. Iho could be forgiven for the face palm, Naruto did just reveal his existence to her boss little sister after all. Keko just stared at the blonde a little dumbfounded, she was aware of the fact that more than one Kyuubi walked the earth. She was just under the impression it was only two, both of which were said to be female. Rias was equal parts amazed, shocked, worried, and excited. There had been the reason for her gasp after all. This would mean a possible paradigm shift was in the works for the Yakai faction. As far as she knew, and she studied the lore extensively, a male Kyuubi had never been heard of. This was huge. While most supernatural factions and pantheons were usually led by a male ruler, the Yakai has always been run by a female nine tails. The current heir to the throne would be Kunu by her reckoning, but this boy could change everything. Naruto, the boy spoke with a strange grin, both Rias and Keko failed to respond, mostly from surprise. They hadn't expected such a candid greeting either, it was far and away from what they had become used to in the last 10 or 15 minutes they had spoken to the Yakai ruler. At this time Rias, I would like to ask you to step outside with your brother, the conversation we are about to undertake is of both a private and sensitive nature. Yasaka's voice broke through the strange meeting of children, making all eyes turn to her. The Redeed looked like she wanted to protest, but made the decision to heed the female ruler's words. No reason to land her Ani-sama in more hot water. Rias turned to the white-haired girl and gave what would have passed as an encouraging smile, "He'll be right outside Keko-chan." The white-haired girl just nodded, a slight apprehensive tone in her features, though little else showed through. Naruto decided that bothered him. Don't worry. Yasaka-sama is really nice, I'm sure she just wants to talk about weird Yakai stuff. The blonde nodded sagely as both girls looked at him, to him it only made sense, the girl was a Yakai too after all. Yasaka waited until the door had latched behind the red-headed girl, before a much less formal atmosphere washed over the room. Well then, as to why I called you all here, Keko-chan here is one of the few survivors from what most in the supernatural world are simply calling the Purge, a fitting, if grim, title. Rias was tasked with her care recently by Lucifer, and so far, it seems to have been more or less easy living. Naruto looked down at the table as Yasaka spoke. Iho had told him about the massacre of the Nekomata species just 2 days ago, and it tore him up inside. An entire people just gone, he couldn't even begin to try and understand how Lady Matatabi must feel, much less how this Keko must be handling things. He just couldn't understand the world, it always seemed so dark. However, I wish to change that, Yasaka spoke after a moment, pulling the wide eyes of the others back to herself. Kaneko-chan, what has happened to you and the others is nothing short of a tragedy and an insult to all of Yakai here, and now I'd like to offer you an open door. Well, I don't doubt the young Grimmery's good intentions, her brother is another matter, if you like. I will have you released from her service and you can live here, safe and away from any who would seek to harm you. Naruto brought a hand to his chin and thought, that made sense he supposed, with the Nico people now down to a scant handful, having them all in one place would be both good and bad. Good because they could be protected more efficiently, on top of the fact that it could possibly lessen the blow of everything that had happened to the poor girl. Being around people like you helped in such a way. Bad because they would be easier to track and target, not to mention Yasaka-sama would be stepping on more than a few toes to get it done. Not that she seemed to mind in the slightest. The Nekashu looked at the table, her eyes searching its rich dark surface, taking in the offer with all the seriousness in the world. Kaneko was truly lost, such an offer was unprecedented, not only would she be allowed to abandon her queen, but she could also truly be protected, if she stayed in Kyudo, no one would dare search for her, especially if the leader of Yakai made it clear she was under her protection. The diminutive girl paused for a moment, her eyes slowly relaxing. I appreciate the offer, milady, but I can't accept it, Kaneko spoke lowly, her head bowing. It was an amazing offer, really, but Rias, it hadn't been long knowing that girl, but something about her just latched onto the girl. She had even given her a new name. Rias was to thank for her first steps to recovery, she called to abandon her, not like Kaneko herself had been abandoned. Yasaka took in the girl's form, a slight downturn of her lips, she had hoped against the girl declining, but she couldn't force her to accept, if she wanted to stay with Rias, so be it. Don't look so glum, Kaneko-chan, Yasaka-sama did say it's an open door, Naruto's voice chimed up, he wasn't entirely sure what was going on, but he understood enough, we'll be here if you ever need something, so don't be afraid to ask. The boy threw her a thumbs up, his cheesy smile almost lighting up the room. The three women of the room each had different reactions to the outburst, from Kaneko's confused head tilt, shocked that anyone would speak out of line in the presence of their ruler, to Iho head desk maneuver that shook the teacups, she shouldn't have been surprised, it was Naruto after all. Yasaka took it all in stride, grateful to her fellow blonde, defusing the tension that had slowly begun to build in the room, give the boy a few years, and he would be might good at negotiating. Yes, it is as Naruto said, if you ever need assistance, we of the Yakai faction will gladly offer aid, she spoke with a slight chuckle, the sound doubling at the beaming smile Naruto sent her. That boy was too kind for his own good. Iho paused, hand raised to the air, about to launch into a tirade of reasons why you don't speak out of line in such an important meeting, only to deflate at Lady Yasaka's words. Everyone was going to ruin the manners she had tried to instill in Naruto, damn it. I believe we can move to less trying conversation for the time being, such as your living conditions under Rias Gremory, Yasaka spoke up after a moment. If Miss Taoju was adamant about staying with the girl, Yasaka could at least ascertain that she had proper housing. If Kaneko was living in less than stellar conditions, well, Yasaka did have Surziches by the figurative balls, she could use that leverage for something at the very least. Naruto was graced with seeing the very small smile that spread across Kaneko's face as she began to explain her new home. NGD. Naruto sighed in an odd mix of exhaustion and boredom, watching as Lord Lucifer and Lady Leviathan left the shrine grounds with Rias and Kaneko in tow. It had been a long day filled with one meeting or another, and it had left the youth feeling tired, bored, and mostly confused. Lady Yasaka, Naruto asked as he kept his eyes on the steps leading to the large arched doorway to the inner shrine. Yes, Naruto-kun. How come you had me sit in with all of those meetings today? I couldn't place most of what you talked about, especially with Lord Lucifer and Lady Leviathan, but it seemed pretty important and secretive. Yasaka hummed in the back of her throat, a small smile crossing her face. Yes, it was, I spoke with my uncle, and he was of the same mind as you for a time. If I am to understand the game they are playing, in a few years, yours is an opinion many would like to have, I prefer you learn how to give it early on. Naruto's eyes lit up in understanding, oh, so this is like training. Yasaka gave a chuckle, nodding as she turned to re-enter the Shurin complex. Exactly, well I'm sure my aunts and uncles won't allow you to be uneducated, they have no real desire to step into any political turmoil, if they can avoid it, something about paperwork. Naruto shook his head childishly as he followed along behind Yasaka, that doesn't seem very responsible, the young blonde spoke. And I suppose skipping out on history classes is? The female Yakai spoke with a slight hint of teasing. Naruto has the decency to blush. Keep in mind, you start physical training with Sunoji-sama tomorrow at noon, I'd avoid being late if I were you, Yasaka spoke in farewell as she rounded the corner to head back to her office. Naruto just watched her go, wondering what was going through her mind, before pushing it off with a shrug. It was already evening, maybe he should find Kunu and get some dinner. That for end the story. Thanks for watching.